Welcome back to Global Environment. Last time we talked about what is biodiversity. I'd like to move on and just tell you a little bit about where is biodiversity and talk about this next this biodiversity crisis that gets discussed a great deal. Where is biodiversity? Basically, the simple answer is it is everywhere. No matter where you look, biodiversity is. You can go, for example, you can see that ice coring from Antarctica. That little darker strip there is algae. On the other side of the screen, you can see a whole new set of species that have been just discovered near deep sea vents, hydrothermal vents in the bottom of the Pacific, all boiling temperatures, creatures that somehow have specialized there. Those are extreme examples. You, of course, are covered with all sorts of neat biodiversity if you care to look, and are an ecosystem unto yourself. But where really is biodiversity, the bulk of it is in two places. One is in the warmer, moister forests of the equatorial regions, especially areas where you have a lot of mountains and a lot of islands. Southeast Asia is a great example of where biodiversity is just at staggering levels. Tropical rainforests with all of their species and that are all interdependent on one another, that have been are really the place that we really focus on for biodiversity around the world. But another area that never gets really appreciated is coral reefs. They come at a close second. If you go to a healthy coral reef and you just look at the total number of species in a small area, it runs very close second to what you'll find in a tropical rainforest. So this biodiversity crisis that we hear about, what's it all about? Crisis? What crisis? I think most of the public realizes there is something pretty serious going on, although many people don't. I want to make the point here that we are in the middle of a major extinction event, but that extinctions are natural. They have occurred throughout the history of life. Basically, extinctions our rates are just slightly behind genesis rates or species creation rates, so we get a steady accrual or accumulation of species despite some serious extinction events. Just look here, that image at the top there is of a lake just north of here in northern Quebec, a huge, basically 60 miles across that circle. That's a single lake, and you can probably infer from the shape of that it's not particularly natural in the sense. It's a result of a meteor impact, a huge impact to the Earth. And these things happen fairly regularly through the history of life, and they plunge the Earth into darkness and prolonged periods of acid rain and cause huge extinction events. But life recovers and rebounds and slowly gets back to a level slightly before the last big extinction rate. So extinction is happening all the time. The issue is, though, it's a question of these rates. Creation and extinction. And what we're seeing now basically is a background rate of extinction of 1 to 10 species of all forms have gone extinct each year over geological time. But just, for example, during this past decade, we're seeing a rate that, as best we can estimate, is 100 to 10,000 species of going extinct each year. So 1 to 100 versus 100 to 10,000. A lot of uncertainty here, but very, very different rates. And so we're looking at a rate of extinction here just in the last couple hundred years that is much, much higher than the history of life has seen for a very, very long time. We are obviously the force in all of this, although I don't want to say it's a recent phenomenon. We have been, as we've expanded out of Africa and colonized the world, our species, wherever we go, we except curiously in Africa, where we seem to have evolved and been compatible with nature. Everywhere else where we arrive at a new continent, we knock off, first of all, what are called the big ones. These are the big megafauna, so-called the giant tortoises. This is a giant beaver, the mammoths, mastodons. This is a short-faced bear, a large carnivorous bear. These are moas of New Zealand that went extinct almost immediately when humans arrived. Wherever we arrive, we cause a loss of, initially, just through very simple technologies, hunting, perhaps some diseases that we bring with us, some major kills of especially large animals. After we colonized all the continents, we shifted over to many of the major islands. So this is the classic dodo story, but a whole very islands are isolated, they generate weird, odd forms of creatures like dodos, which are basically large flightless pigeons that eat fruit. But we arrive and we decimate them. And these island extinctions then have gone on for quite some time. I give you this example. This is that you're familiar with manatees from Florida, for example. This one here. We've forgotten that there was one that was 3, 4, 5 times its size living off the coast of Alaska until just around the early 1800s, decimated very quickly with the first arrival of people. Curious, gentle creatures that came up to ships out of just to say hello, really, and out of pure curiosity, and were decimated. This is sort of the first wave of extinctions associated with humans. Now we're in a period of not just colonizing and moving to new areas, but really transforming the environment in these areas that we occupy. So the third wave is indeed us, and it has to do with our sheer numbers, numbers of humans, but also the per capita impacts, which require us to significantly transform the land and the waters to extract the resources we need to not only survive, but to aspire to more comfort and convenience. And this is another dimension in the extinction crisis. And this is the really big one, obviously, which affects not just the megafauna, but now pretty much everything. Displacement of natural communities, plants, insects, all of biodiversity is the big one. These issues are, so human population is the big driver, and it's not often highlighted. We think, how is this actually expressed in specific threats to biodiversity? I think the human population issue is never particularly well described because we deal with a lot of numbers, and people are always uncomfortable with big numbers. So I like to put this in a human context, which is my own life story. For example, just in people I have known, my grandparents to my own son. And my parents, the world has changed dramatically just in this short period of time. For example, when I was born in 1963, there were about 3 billion people on Earth. I was the last of 4. I was a baby bonus. My mother got a baby bonus for having me to boost the population of the province of Quebec, part of a population augmentation program. My father was born in Barbados in 1927. He was also one of 4 children. Maybe someday we'll go to Gibbs Beach in Barbados. But the global population then was just 2 billion. So my life, when I was born, 3 billion, my father, 2 billion. My grandparents, who I knew very well and was very fond of, they 1 billion at that time. So even in my own lifetime, people I have known and interacted with, the world has gone from 1 billion with my grandparents' birth, 2 billion, my father's, 3 billion mine, and my own son now here, 6 to 7 billion now is where we're at. We're at this period of enormous population increase. So this is what's driving it, and all of the ways that we need to support this human population is behind the current extinction crisis. So what we will focus on next is how all this translates through specific threats to biodiversity, given that human population growth and consumption is the big driver. And you can just see here from 1700 to 2002, the brown indicates areas we've converted, roads, pipelines, railroads, etc. And you can just see in the wink of an eye the rapid displacement, basically, of natural communities associated with our expansion of our population. So next we will focus on specific threats, how human population translates into specific threats to biodiversity.